As industries move to a more evolved digital ecosystem, the financial services sector has been infused with transformations and disruptions that brands like Equinix are pioneering. Equinix supports financial organizations to meet their customer needs and infrastructure requirements by providing them modern IT infrastructure, secure context-related real-time data, improve interoperability, communication, and collaboration across the financial services ecosystem, not just in India, but in its international business exchanges all over the world.
Hello and welcome to Viz Anecdotes presents Master Reset, partnered by Times Now. Now, consumers in the financial services space have come to expect frictionless customer journeys. But on the flip side, has technology transformation, and perhaps more specifically, technology adoption across the financial services ecosystem, kept pace with evolving consumer preferences? Well, these are all complex questions, and they deserve to be approached from a 360-degree perspective. Unfortunately, I'm joined by a highly distinguished panel of subject matter experts to help me do just that. Please allow me to introduce our guests. We have with us Managing Director of Equinix India, Manoj Paul, co-founder of Upstocks, Srini Vishwanath, and Managing Director of the Bombay Stock Exchange Investments and Head of Strategy at the BSE, Shankar Jadhav. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and I'd love to kick off the conversation with you, Shankar. Now, in the wake of this pandemic, we all have renewed aspirations when it comes to our financial future. And as stock markets continue to weather extreme cycles of boom and bust, trading activity continues to remain at an all-time high. So my question to you is, what's been the Bombay Stock Exchange's approach to essentially modernizing and optimizing its existing IT infrastructure?
Bombay Stock Exchange, as you know, over the last decade or so, we have been in the forefront of technology. In fact, we normally plan with the capacity and the number of people that we have for much larger than what we have today, and that's the regulation 2. So we've been seeing the number of investors jump almost double, and our systems have been able to do it very well. We continuously upgrade our technology, both the hardware and the software, and we have partners who help us through our journey.
Well, coming to you now, Srini, Upstocks, of course, offers stock market advisory and investment services, however, as largely an online play. So my question is, at what age and stage of the company's life cycle did you come to the conclusion that your legacy IT infrastructure was perhaps becoming a bit obsolete? And how did you ultimately make the determination that it made sense and was the most appropriate move to migrate to a hybrid model?
So we actually started our journey with an all-inclusive software offering where a vendor supplied us hosted trading software and we didn't need any infrastructure on our own to scale clients. Eventually, we felt the need to innovate on the product side, and therefore we moved away from that model to building our own software. That's when we sort of began our journey of building and managing our own data center. This was well before the era of cloud. But by 2016, global cloud providers started opening up operations in India, and we started experimenting with them early on. We saw this possibility where we could actually dynamically scale up our services without the need of personnel, without the need of a lead or lag time of 2 to 4 weeks. Almost instantly at a click of a button, we could scale up. At that time, while there was not so much demand in stock trading, we foresaw that in the next 5-10 years, it is going to be important to be in a position where you can scale up your infrastructure. We're also tired of the fact that every 3 years, 4 years, we had to keep replacing our servers and switches just because they couldn't keep up with the demand. And look, we're in the business of giving brokerage services to the client. We don't want to be in the business of managing our infrastructure, managing our data center, and we'd rather leave that to the experts. So ultimately around that time, 2017, 2018, when we saw cloud providers mature in India, we made that shift to say, let's start going cloud native. Let's build all of our stack on the cloud. And what we need is a data center who can link up with the cloud, give us extremely high, reliable connectivity, and make sure that both our high efficiency, high scale operations in the cloud and our cost efficient and resilient operations in the data center were connected really well. So, the last 4 or 5 years have been us innovating on top of that. It's having a hybrid model works amazing when you're working with regulators, when you work with exchanges who need a physical presence. It also works amazingly well in times of the pandemic. You're seeing trades, orders, customers double, triple so quickly, and you can't send someone physically to go pick up a server and install it.
Well, Manoj, I'd love to come to you now, building on some of Srini's observations. Because when we talk about Equinix, I think a lot comes to mind. First of all, the global data centers, of course, its co-location services, its multi-cloud ecosystems, and essentially its worldwide robust connectivity. But what do you think makes the company the partner and platform of choice for players specifically in the financial services space?
Well, Equinix is the world's digital infrastructure company. And today, when you see around, most of the transactions, most of the activities that we do are nowadays on digital platforms. So all these applications and technologies need an underlying digital infrastructure for them to perform well. And Equinix is into that business of providing a critical component of this digital infrastructure of interconnection between different businesses, network service providers, the cloud service providers, and so on. And it has been an exciting journey, especially in the last 2-3 years, that we have been able to play a major role in the digital transformation of organizations like Upstock or Bombay Stock Exchange and so many more across the world, around 10,000 more customers across the globe. So we have around 235 plus data centers in 65 plus metros in 27 countries. So what it does is that any customer who is on an Equinix platform can easily expand to any of these metros anywhere in the world with ease and with convenience, with the conviction that they are going to get the reliability and the service quality of an Equinix. Today, Bombay Stock Exchange wants to set up a POP in New York next to the New York Stock Exchange, or Upstock wants to set up a POP next to any other stock exchange around the world. We already have contracts with them and use that contract and get connected. So one is ubiquitous presence across the globe. Second is that we have 10,000 plus customers, and that includes stock exchanges, banks, financial institutes, and also around 1,800 network operators and 1,000 plus cloud, 3,000 plus cloud service providers and IT service providers. So what it does is, if you are Equinix platform, you can access all these service providers. And as Srini said that, hey, we should not be doing everything ourselves, right? We should be leveraging partners. And that's where you look for a proposition where you have options. You have options on multiple cloud service providers, your option for multiple system integrators, your option on multiple network service providers. The Equinix then provides that. And finally, we have the Equinix Fabric. The Equinix Fabric interconnects all the data centers so that today, sitting here in Mumbai, if Srini wants to upgrade his bandwidth between his India POP and say his New York POP, he can go online and then he can upgrade it or downgrade it with convenience and ease and also very high efficiency.
Shankar, my question to you is specifically in the context of use cases. Now, when we talk about the Bombay Stock Exchange, it's imperative that it be able to seamlessly connect with other exchanges globally 24/7. To what extent has Equinix been an enabler in that regard for you?
More than a decade back, we set up our own colocation data center along with our own data center. Our data center existed much before that also. Over the years, we realized that partners are the most important chain inside our whole system. And in the financial services market, especially in the exchanges where buy and sell transactions happen, the latency has to be the lowest. The lowest latency will always win you whatever order you give. And for that reason, more than a decade back, we took help of one of the service providers' data centers to put a colocation just in our building. Similarly, we realized that depending on one data center could be a difficult task. So we have partnered with teams like GPX or Equinix, and where we hold a near data center, and we get very good service. And having more POPs all across the country where investors are also helps quite a lot. So these two things combined with the network service providers, linkages with the data centers really help us a lot. And that says for the maturity of our Indian IT industry, both the hardware and software, world over, it is considered one of the best.
Srini, coming to you. Now, Shankar a moment ago just talked about latencies. And for an online trading solutions company, ease and speed of transactions is absolutely critical. It's non-negotiable. So to what extent has partnering with Equinix, shaped your customer latencies and perhaps beyond that, your cost efficiencies as well?
A large goal for us is to be able to provide these services quickly and in a very cost-effective manner. With Equinix, what we're able to do is partner with someone who gives us unparalleled connectivity to the cloud. More than half of our applications are in hybrid, and they're hosted in the cloud, and the other part of it lives in the data center, connecting to exchanges such as the BSC. So what we needed was a highly scalable, connected, resilient environment. We're talking about managing P2P lines, MPLS lines, internet lines to the customer, firewalls in between. There's so many gates, checks, and processes there to guarantee data security and data privacy, yet at the same time, you can't harm latency so much to be able to come in there, right? So it's absolutely critical for us to ensure that these things are managed extremely well. And that's where Equinix came in with the proposition where they give you fantastic connectivity to the cloud, and they give fantastic connectivity to both the exchanges. And it makes a difference. For us, making sure that every part of that line from when the customer places buy on their mobile phone, sitting in somewhere in India to where it hits the Bombay Stock Exchange, we have to make sure that it's optimized at every point in between.
Well, Manoj, earlier in this conversation, you mentioned Equinix Fabric. And to my understanding, it's a solution within the broader product portfolio that is designed to essentially empower and enable companies to interconnect their physical and virtual infrastructures. Tell me more, and tell me more about the underlying technology that enables that to happen.
Equinix Fabric has multiple value offerings within it. And let me start off with first, which is it interconnects all the data centers, the 235 plus that I mentioned across the globe. So what it does is that it enables any customer located in any data center to interconnect with the 10,000 customers across the globe, which includes banks, financial institutes, and stock exchanges and everything. And again, in many ways, it's just on a click of a button, you can increase the bandwidth, start a bandwidth, and all that. So that's one offering. Second is the multi-cloud connectivity through our cloud exchange, which Srini talked about. So what we believe is customers in most cases are going to go hybrid multi-cloud. So they will have some application on their own infrastructure, and they when go on the cloud, they would prefer to have options rather than being limited to only one cloud service provider. And Upstock is using that multi-cloud platform that we have offered. What it does is that it helps you to shift workloads, it helps you to have redundancy and use the strengths of each of these cloud providers. So we enable cloud on the RAM. That means you can have a direct connectivity to the cloud service providers instead of using the internet, which is the most commonly used method of connecting to the cloud. But that is not reliable, and the performance may deteriorate or change depending upon the congestion on the internet. And second, security-wise, it might be a little challenging. Also, importantly, it reduces the cost, because when you connect to a cloud over a cloud RAM, over a dedicated connect, your bandwidth cost comes down, and also your cloud charges also comes down. Finally, Equinix Fabric also includes an internet exchange. What it does is that the internet exchange connects the multiple internet service providers and telecom service providers to enterprises. So in a nutshell, Equinix Fabric is a basket of these offerings, and it's a cornerstone of our differentiator and value proposition towards customers.
I'd love to take this opportunity to switch gears a bit. And with that, I'll come to you now, Shankar. We've talked so much about customer architecture, but what I'd love to explore is, in your view, what do customers care most about? You know, is it achieving digital transformation? Is it purely cost optimization? Is it seamless 24/7 operations? How have their priorities evolved at an enterprise level, and how do you anticipate they'll continue to evolve?
The GPX data center's reliability has been very, very, very good. I would say excellent. What customers want is that they want to be able to connect whenever they want. They want to be able to transact whenever they want and without failure. You can see the history of exchanges all across the world. Exchanges do have an issue sometime or the other. But since we've started the cloud environment, the issues have reduced. In fact, the hybrid multi-cloud environment that Manoj talked about is a very big reality today. Another thing that maybe all of us have to realize is that in a country, developing country like ours, where the power demand is surging and we are going into more renewables, the data center service providers, they ensure that the power never goes down. We are talking about all automated cars, automated vehicles. We are talking about 5G coming in. The data centers are going to play a big, big role, because where will the IoT devices converge? Where will the service, tangible and intangible services converge? The multi-cloud environment is here to stay. Hybrid cloud is important for both security reasons, latency reasons, etc.
Well, Srini, I'd like to take another stab at this conversation from a slightly different angle. And that is that regardless of how sophisticated the technology is, it's of very little value if it exists in isolation. So how does a company such as yours essentially connect the dots between robust architecture and infrastructure and building that operational resilience and ultimately delivering the customer a superior consumer experience?
Well, Pooja, I think a lot of that has to do with the processes that you lay in place. You have to plan well ahead to be scalable, to be resilient, and as you mentioned, to give that great customer experience, right? Anticipation is everything in this game to make sure that you're ahead of it. Here's a couple things that I would recommend for everybody to look at, and this is something that's helped us a lot weather through some tough storms in the past. Make sure that you're always scaling 3x of your load. Make sure that the capacity of your compute services, your infrastructure is always, slightly more than 25%, but less than, say, around 40% or 45%, right? Once you start hitting that 50% mark, I would look at scaling our infrastructure more. Number two, test and retest. Your core infrastructure needs to be load tested every so often. People check in their code so much more frequently right now, but everyone forgets to do an entire system-wide test, right? So what we do is we always run large environment-wide tests at least once or twice a month. I know the exchanges also offer mock drills, so they give a great opportunity to do that. But whether you're in fintech or you're not in fintech, please ensure you're running large-scale tests at least once or twice a month. The third thing I would say is make sure that you build a very primary architecture. So even if one of your servers or cluster of servers go down, it doesn't impact the end customer. Look for where there's a single point of failure, a single bottleneck in the entire tech process, and ensure that you're working to remove that and debottleneck that as much as possible.
Lovely. And Manoj, I'd love for you to first weigh in, because at the heart of this conversation, I think there's no denying the fact that customer is king. And as Equinix, of course, its primary focus is to ensure that it efficiently serves its customers. How do you then in turn ensure that those very customers of yours are able to forward deliver an equally exciting, engaging, and sustainable customer experience to their end users?
That is no bigger testimony than customer success studies. And that is what even Shankar also mentioned, that players like us with such a long history and 10,000 customers across the globe, we have so much of experiences in providing solutions to our customers around the globe that we know what works, what does not work, and how customers like Upstock or Bombay Stock Exchange can benefit. I'll give you some examples. Say CME, which is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. What they did was they set up their edge POPs and our Sydney data center, our Tokyo data center, and our London data center. And they asked their customers to set up small POPs. Along with that, connect with the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange infrastructure, and they extended their platform in all these metros with very much ease. So they got an experience and they could expand the market with our leveraging on our infrastructure. I mean, there are many examples like the IC, the Internet, the Intercontinental Exchange, which is another Fortune 500 company which did the similar thing. Now, let's take an example of National Stock Exchange. We read in the newspaper that they are setting up something called a direct connect between NSE and SGX, Singapore Exchange, so that some of the investors of SGX can get data from on Nifty on a live basis and also can trade. Now we can help and make it even bigger. Today, if an Indian stock exchange wants to get connected to stock exchanges across the world, we can provide that. It's not only one SGX, but across the world. And through that, they can enable their customers, the customers of those exchanges, to trade on this exchange and bring in more momentum into the Indian stock exchanges. And say, for instance, even for upstocks also, today they are in India. And tomorrow, if they decide that, okay, I want to let Indian consumers trade on New York Stock Exchange or a London Stock Exchange, we can enable Upstock to set up a POP next to these stock exchanges, connect to them, and provide them with a low latency feed so that the Indian consumers can trade on international bourses. Regulatory wise, what is allowed, not allowed, let's keep it aside, because what is not allowed today might get allowed tomorrow. So let's keep it that. Flip it around, tomorrow, Upstarts can make their app available to customers of, say, New York Stock Exchange or London Stock Exchange, and they can start trading through New York Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, on Indian Stock Exchange using an Upstarts app. All that we can make it happen without they worrying how to interconnect, what if the bandwidth chokes and all that. They can see the bandwidth interconnection online on a virtual basis, and a click of a button, upgrade their bandwidth, and then provide very high quality services to Indian customers and to customers across the globe. And that's the knowledge and the experience over the years of providing services to so many large corporates across the world. That is what we are bringing to India. We are rolling out some of these services in the next few quarters, and I'm sure that is going to help Indian corporates, including Indian financial institutes, to move faster in their digital journey and to expand their business leveraging the digital platforms.
Well, I believe that makes for a wonderful note upon which to close this conversation. And with that, our special feature, Biz Anecdotes presents Master Reset, partnered by Times Now, comes to a wrap. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing such a rich range of perspectives from both your personal as well as your professional journeys. We trust that all of our viewers found the insights of value. Thanks for watching.